So, this is a video that I'm doing for the Johnwicksnipin challenge. But I'm going to do my disclaimer anyway, because knowing me, I'll probably say something that's crazy, right? So, I am not a financial advisor. I do not give financial advice. I am an entertainer. The one and only Apefather in the house. Wow! I'm in my minivan. This is my man cave. Okay. So I guess what this is that it's like a kind of like my background, how I got into AMC, and how I feel about the play, and some motivational speaking. Of course, that's what I do. So let's start. Okay, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. Okay, that's where I was born and raised most of my life. When my grandmother passed away, I originally lived on the Coney Island side of Brooklyn, which was West 12th Street and Avenue U. Around the corner from where I lived, we had John's Deli, we had Spumoni Gardens, L&B Spumoni Gardens, the two greatest Italian restaurants in the world. So that's how I got started, becoming a big Italian food lover. I lived I was able to walk to L&B Spumoni Gardens where I lived on West 12th Street. When my grandmother passed away, God bless, my father inherited the house on Benson Avenue. This was off of 15th Avenue in Benson. This was considered Dyka Park, not Dyka Heights. Dyka Heights was more towards 11th Avenue. This was Dyka Heights. And I grew up basically, it's also like right around Bensonhurst, you know what I mean? So that's where I spent most of my, I was like around 20 years old, about 19 to 20 when we moved there. But most of my life, I grew up in the Coney Island side of Brooklyn. Just learned a lot about being street smart. I had a lot of friends that, let's just say, they did things not so legal, but it taught me to be street smart. So I definitely grew up with more of like an understanding of the street. But at the same time, I did want to be, book smart too. I did go, believe it or not, people don't know this. I went to college. I have a bachelor's degree. I went to the College of Staten Island, and I also went to Kingsborough. So there was, back and forth from Brooklyn, and then we moved to Staten Island, me and my wife, when we got married originally. And, we were there for like over 10 years. Very, very briefly, we lived in Pittsburgh, only for 1 year. And this was after like the World Trade Center. My wife worked at the World Trade Center. She worked at 2 World Trade. We just wanted to get out of New York. It was a very, as you could imagine, dramatic experience for my wife. And unfortunately, because of that, my poor wife developed cancer, breast cancer. God bless her. It was no fault of her own. It was no fault of her own. She was just, the city said it was safe, to work in Manhattan after the Twin Towers went down and all of those toxins in the air. A lot of people got cancer. A lot of people. Such a sin. But we lived in Pittsburgh after 9/11 for about a year, maybe a year and a half, almost 2 years. I hated Pittsburgh, I'll be honest with you. The only thing I liked about it was the fact that they had great steaks. I mean, the steaks were unmanned. You had the most amazing steaks in the whole world in Pittsburgh. I have to say, honestly, even better than New York. The steaks were delicious. But other than that, we had no friends. We had no family. And not that there's anything against what I'm about to say, okay? Because I got to watch everything I say. But everyone in Pittsburgh were like born again Christians, all of our neighbors. So they convinced us to go to one of their, born again Christian churches. And, it was actually, the thing I liked about it was almost like a rock concert. Like they had these bands up there playing and like guitars, keyboards, drums, and I was blown away by it. I was like, wow, it was like a rock concert, rock concert. But at the end, they were like, everyone, please donate to us. So I pulled out $2, whatever, I don't care. A couple of bucks, $3, $4, thinking they're gonna come around with those, what do you call those things? They come around the church. The offering. I know it's the offering, but they have these like wooden, I forget what they're called, but you put the money in these like whatever they're called, these wooden things. They come through the church, and you put it inside. So that's what I thought they were going to do. I thought it was like the same thing, but unfortunately, they wanted checks. They wanted 10% of your weekly income, and they wanted you to dedicate every week 10%. And I saw and they had like all these people there. It was like a stadium. There were like maybe 1,000 people, and everyone stood up with their checkbooks, and they were gonna donate 10% of. And I was like blown away by this. And I just told my wife, I'm like, we're moving back to New York. It's like that's it. We got to get out of here ASAP. So we moved back to New York. I lived with my parents temporarily until we were gonna find a place of our own, and we winded up just going to Staten Island at that point. And then we stayed in Staten Island for 10 years, over 10 years. And we had a beautiful house we were renting in Staten Island. It was gorgeous. Had an in-ground pool. I had my jacuzzi. I was paying like, $3,000, $4,000 a month. But it was like a beautiful house. But the prices of real estate in New York are just so expensive. So when I wanted to buy the house, the woman's like, yeah, Rich, I'll give you a good deal. This was my landlord. She's like, I'll give you a good deal, $1.2 million. Like $1.2 million. Like, what are you kidding me? So my wife's parents lived out in the Jersey Shore. They retired, and they had a beautiful place in Waretown. And unfortunately, my wife's mother passed away. God bless her. She was a beautiful person, man. The most wonderful, good-hearted, and an amazing cook. The best cook in the entire world. We miss her very dearly. God bless her. And then her father was alone. So we were like, you know what? Let's move out there. This way my wife would be close to her father, and we were in the next town over. And the real estate was reasonable. You could buy a house for like, $300, $350, and you could get like a ridiculously nice house. I'm talking, we have an in-ground pool, everything. Almost 3,000 square feet, 4 bedrooms. You can't get that in Brooklyn. You can't get that in Staten Island. So anyway, that's around the time now getting into AMC. I started watching Lou, Uncle Fester, and he really convinced me. He was like, if your family has cancer, if you're dealing with hard times in your life, you must be a part of this. This is the play. And he was just going over everything that was just happening and how we're beating the hedge funds. And it's how it's the little guy, the average Joe, who's, struggling and working hard and just, wants a piece of the American pie. I just loved it. Like the David and Goliath story, just how we're going up against the corruption. I'm like, I want to be a part of this, man. So, but I was introduced to AMC from Lou. As you can imagine why I have a lot of hatred towards him at this point. But anyway, I put my life savings in. That was not Lou's decision. That was my decision. I bought high. I bought AMC at $53 a share. Okay, and I bought, at the time, 3,500 shares. I held it for 8 months. It just kept going lower and lower and lower and lower and lower. I never lost my conviction into play, but I didn't, I'm going to be honest, I didn't realize the corruption. I always knew that there was corruption. Okay. See, people don't understand this. I was a stockbroker at one time, but the majority of my career was in real estate sales and, just sales in general. Okay. I've done a lot of different sales. I'm not going to get into all of it, but I've been in sales for 20 years. And, I just didn't realize like how corrupt. I know it was corrupt, but I didn't realize how Ken Griffin had a ticket to ride where literally there's no one enforces. The government doesn't enforce any rules. This guy doesn't have to report any of his synthetic shares, naked shorting, with Citadel Connect, how he was connected with payment for order flow, where he controlled, like he literally controls like Robinhood, TD Ameritrade, E-Trade, Charles Schwab, Webull, and and every time we trade, every time we buy and sell on these payment for order flow platforms, he gets richer. And, he seems to have a complete control, a complete ticket to ride to do whatever he wants without any, any legal trouble. You know, it's like, it doesn't seem like Gary Gensler gives two shits. I was just talking to my wife about this, you know, like Gary Gensler is a civil servant worker. You know, he's a government worker. How much do you think Gary Gensler makes a year? Not that much, believe it or not, you know, because he works for the government. Maybe he makes what? If the president of the United States makes 400,000, how much does he make? 150, maybe 200. So I sometimes, this is alleged. It's alleged, but sometimes I start thinking, you know, is Ken Griffin paying this guy off? You know, because it seems like he doesn't do anything. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. Like, all this blatant manipulation is going on and he doesn't care. So that's my only problem with AMC, is just blatant. Well, actually, I have a few more problems. I shouldn't say it's my only problem. I'm really not satisfied with the management. I think Adam Aaron only cares about himself. I do not believe he is a friend of the retail investor. So you might be saying there's a lot of negatives here. What's the positives? The positives is that there is definitely good reason to believe. We have good reason to believe that there is use of millions, billions, or even possibly trillions of fake synthetic shares. Because think about this. Logically, how did they get the price of AMC to these levels? It doesn't make any sense, right? We own 90% of the float. Okay, and if you actually count the synthetics, we probably own 90% times 1,000 of the float, right? Okay, so it doesn't make sense. We're not selling. We're known for being resilient, having diamond balls of steel. I only sold one time. I'm going to tell you the truth, and I made it public. There was a certain treatment my wife had to get because of her breast cancer that was not covered through the insurance. And unfortunately, I had to lay out $15,000. I had to sell 500 shares of my original 3,500 shares. Since then, I bought back over 300 shares. So, you know, it had to be done. All right, everybody breaks my balls about it. You sold. Listen, family has to come first. I always say that to everyone. Listen, you can never, ever put money before family. Stop that. Okay, money is nothing. Money comes and money goes. But family is your priority. And my wife, I love her with all my heart. She's my priority. My children are my priority. My mom, my dogs. So it had to be done at one time. Listen, and I'm sure that throughout this process that people have been holding for over a year now. What is it, like a year and 3 months, because they got in at January 2021. You know, I'm sure that's some people probably had to sell too for personal or for family reasons. So listen, I don't, you know, people think that like the old Apefather used to yell, never sell AMC. But what I meant was, if you had money into play that wasn't affecting your life. Like, I had one case where there was a guy who says to me, Apefather, you know, my children are not eating for 3 days. Okay. I'm like, what? He goes, my children are starving. I refuse to sell AMC. No, I said, no, sell. I said, sell your AMC, feed your children, you psycho. You know, he's like, yeah, but you told me not to sell. People are crazy, man. You know, listen, you have to have, you know what I learned about the stock market? You got to have money in the stock market that does not affect, you understand, your living. What you can live day to day, pay your bills, feed your family, and it's money that you could afford to lose. I've learned that. I didn't do that. Learn from my mistake. I put my whole life savings in there in one shot, and I'm down probably 150,000 as of right now. I'm down a lot of money, and it's heartbreaking. It's frustrating, but I know that the shorts have not been covered. See, now this is getting back to the positive, because I know right now you've been listening to it sounds negative. Well, let's get to the positive. There is a potential that we are involved in the mother of all short squeezes. Okay, meaning this is going to be something so big, it could give you a once in a lifetime opportunity for generational wealth. Okay, because imagine when something will trigger. We need a trigger. You understand? We need a trigger. Whether that will be maybe a market crash and the hedge funds will be so down on their long positions, or something dramatic happens to them where they might be forced now to cover. We need what's called a forced margin call, where the hedge funds are not in a position. You follow me? They don't have the liquidity, they don't have the collateral, and the bank demands action. If that happens, then you might see something you have never seen in the history of Wall Street, and we could all be a part of history in the making, where AMC could shoot up to amazing high levels. How high could it go? Well, that's up to the apes. That's up to us, because what price would the apes sell at? If the apes had I can't say the word. Say the word.
Resilience?
Resilience. I speak Brooklynese. I can't speak English. The resilience. If apes had the resilience to hold, okay, through halts, through crazy, insane volatilities. I'm talking about once the squeeze starts. Once it starts, okay? Like once there's a force margin call and the squeeze starts. You have to understand that these hedge funds have to cover. They have no choice. So the only way they can cover is if we sell. So in essence, we set the price. Like we could sell this thing at any price we want. It could go to 100,000, 200,000. Theoretically, this is possible because if no one sells their AMC, it's called supply and demand. The price is going to keep going up because no one's selling. Okay. So you could have something that could truly give you generational wealth, meaning not just wealth for you, wealth for your children, their children, their children. You'll be like the Johnson & Johnson family, you understand? So because the shorts have not been covered yet, that's what keeps the Apefather's diamond balls of steel strong. I will not sell until the shorts are covered. To me, the price doesn't matter right now because I understand why the price is low. It's because of all the corruption and all the manipulation. They used all these fake synthetic shares. They drove it down like a friggin', like the Grand Canyon. They drove the price down and they're leaving it at that level. But remember, this can't go on forever. Something eventually will happen where these hedge funds are going to get in trouble. And it could be right now. Look, the Department of Justice is investigating Ken Griffin. Maybe eventually he gets some kind of criminal actions against him, and that might force him to cover. So the only thing we could do is this. No dates, no false predictions, just hold. Okay, I'm not giving you financial advice. I'm not a financial planner. I'm an entertainer, but that's what I'm doing. You got to don't listen to me. Do whatever you want. Do what's best for you. But that's what I'm doing. Holding for gold, baby. AMC to Pluto. Wow!